Hello, everyone. I am back with chapter 30 of System Synthesis, titled A Step Up. Isuku woke up with a sharp inhale and a thundering heart, not because of a nightmare, but because of those moments when you're in a deep sleep and your body randomly jerks like you're about to fall off a height. It's a naturally coded mechanism that has existed since the Stone Age era. It happens because your muscles relax so much your brain mistakes it for you being dead or falling off a height. Hindsight provided through his pain-stricken, sleep-laden mind. Itsuku grumbled, rubbing his eyes as he thought, "Yes, I'm alive, brain. Thank you for checking. No thanks for the heart attack because of you." Itsuku grumbled under his breath as he checked the time on his alarm clock. 4:55, and bright red letters glared at him. He sighed and pushed himself up on his feet. It was time for him to wake up soon anyways. He trudged to the bathroom on the second floor, all the while rubbing the sleep off his face. He paused, the strong smell of soap filling his nose. He frowned, opening his eyes as he sniffed the air. Someone had showered recently, he realized, and from the scent of the eucalyptus, Izuku could tell it was his dad. He frowned even more. Did he come home later than usual? But any further curiosity beyond it was too far for his sleep-laden mind, so he decided to drop the question and freshen up. 15 minutes later, he trudged back out of the bathroom, feeling a tad bit more alive than before. The sound of the flush filled the silence of the hallway as he walked back to his room. He quickly changed into his running outfit, a pair of light blue track pants and a sleeveless olive green top. Quietly, he tiptoed down the stairs and picked up his Shota's earbuds from where it laid on shelves on the TV. He had spotted them last night and planned to steal them ever since. His dad had gotten them recently since headphones made his ears hurt, and Itsuku was curious about the buds' audio quality. No, it wasn't because he liked sleek black color with electric blue pattern. With that, Itsuku was out of his house and running down the street to finish his quota of daily tasks. Shota scanned his ID on the scanner in front of the private gym. Punching in the passcode numbers, he waited for the door to slide open. It was currently 7:45 a.m., so the school building was eerily empty. There were no teachers, and UA used robots in place of people for the position of janitor. He shuddered, standing all alone at the end of an empty hallway. On their way to meet the principal sounded like the start of any student's nightmare. Entering the empty gym, Shota decided to warm up a little until Nezu and the new trainer arrived. About 10 minutes later, the door to the gym opened once more. Shota looked up from where he was stretching on the floor and stood up as Nezu and a woman walked in. She was a woman with a muscular figure and a scar stretching across her right cheek, and a few running across the span of her left bicep. From a jagged nature of the brownish scar, Shota guessed they were knife wounds. Shota, feeling a little awkward in the presence of a complete stranger, bowed his head in greeting, muttering a quiet good morning. "Ah, good morning, Eraserhead-san," Nezu chirped, raising his paw up in a mimic of a wave. The woman eyed him critically with a cold gaze, and then she broke into a wide, amused grin. "Morning. I'm Helena Gabrielle Cison Silvio. Call me Helena. Nice to meet ya." Shota blinked, slightly taken aback by the long name, before replying, "Amazawa Shota. Nice to meet you." "Well, since you're already all warmed up, we can get started," she said, and tilted her head, shirt and pants off. "Pardon?" Shota asked incredulously. His wide eyes glanced towards Nezu to make sure he had heard her. right, should pant off, she repeated, pointing with her finger. Or if you have short, you can change into them. Whatever's comfortable for ya. This whole situation is uncomfortable for me. Shota took a deep breath and asked again. If you don't mind me asking, can I ask why? To get an idea of what your body's condition is and see what I'm working with, she explained. Unlike other martial art forms, Silat isn't about self-perfection and shit like that. It's all about physical fitness. Shota stared at her for a second longer, then looked at Nezu. The devil of a rat looked amused and back at his trainer before resigning himself to whatever fate had in store for him. Can I go to the changing room? Shota asked, almost pleading. Sure, Helena agreed easily. And Shota sighed in relief. Picking up his bag, he jogged over to the changing room and slammed closed the door shut. 5 minutes later, Shota walked back out wearing a pair of black shorts and his dark blue compression short and carried his top in his hand. He noticed the trainer once again eyeing him with a critical gaze and wondered if her quirk, assuming she had one, had anything to do with it. Can I know what this is for? Shota asked, standing in front of them. My quirk is called characteristics. It essentially tells me about the strength and weak points of a person standing in front of me. However, it doesn't work accurately when there is a barrier like clothes and stuff. Huh, Shota huffed. That explained a lot. Your body has an impressive core and upper body strength, although comparatively your lower body is weaker, she stated, tilting her head once more as her eyes raked all over his body. I'll give you some exercises to strengthen your lower body. Clicking her tongue, she clapped her hands together and declared, Alright, I got what I needed to know. You can wear your top now. Shota nodded, putting his arm through the hole and pulling it over his head. What are we going to do today? Spy fights, he explained. From what Mr. Nezu said, you're already familiar with the defensive fighting style, so I'm going to see where you stand in terms of fighting. Depending on whatever result you get, I'll make a plan for you to follow, okay? Well, in that case, I'll leave you two to your own devices, Nezu said, clapping his paws together. If you need me, I'll be here. Alright then, hero. Let's see what you got. 10 minutes later, Shota decided that Helena was terrifying. If it wasn't for the fact that Shota fought hand-to-hand combat for years, he would have been on the floor 10 seconds after the fight started, perhaps with broken bones. He wasn't giving him any room to breathe. One after the other, all attacks were aimed for his vitals or weak point. If Shota took the risk to do so much as relax for a second, he would lose immediately. Stop, she shouted, and immediately both of them took a long step back and stopped fighting altogether, although neither of them dropped their offensive stances. Helena glared at him for a few seconds before dropping the offensive stance and stood up straight. You're very different from what I assumed, Eraserhead, she said with a smile. I had trained heroes before, but more often than not, they're so bad at fighting that I have to teach them how to move. You take away their quirk, and suddenly they don't know where to kick or punch. Shota looked away, scratching his cheek with his finger. However, her expression once again turned serious. You're very lenient. You had your fair shares of chances to hurt me, but you actively ignored all of them. He started only to be cut off by Helena raising her hand. I understand it's because you don't want civilians to be scared of you, she said. Mr. Nezu had made me aware of your opinions. However, consider this, Eraserhead. Just because you're capable of hurting and breaking others doesn't make you dangerous. Just because you're holding a weapon doesn't make you dangerous. How you use it does. The same way a knife by itself isn't bad, depending on the way it is used can be dangerous or useless. Shut aside. I know. But what? She asked. Eraserhead, you and I both know that there will always be people who refuse to understand until they're hurt. What happens if villains are like that? What happens if a villain keeps attacking someone you're protecting or care about because they know that you won't ever raise a weapon against them. Shota's mind immediately went to the USJ incident. The footage of Asuku fighting to protect him and his students replayed in his mind. His son had been hurt, and he had been unable to do anything. He had been too tired from tackling the several low-tiered villains, and that was only because those pests kept standing back up as many times as they could before passing out. And that's the thing, isn't it? Eraserhead subdues his opponent. He held them down under pressure and or wrapped in his capture weapon, which meant that there was always a chance that the opponent could step back up and attack once more. If he had ruined them all at the first chance, he would have had more energy to fight Shigaraki, because to subdue someone isn't the same as straight up destroying them. But if you're still hesitant about the idea, how about this, Eraserhead? Learn how to destroy your enemies, at the very least, even if you don't use it. Keep the knowledge with you, even if you don't put it into practice. Shota looked at her with furrowed brows before sighing once more and nodding. She was right. Even if Eraserhead wasn't the kind of hero to destroy villains altogether, it didn't mean he couldn't have the knowledge of how to do it. It's as Helena said, there's no harm in knowing. Alright, Isuku had been in the middle of filling out his hero analysis notebook about number 43 hero, the spider hero, Arachno. As the name success suggested, the hero's ability was based on spiders, and currently, Isuku was looking through footage of the hero's recent fight, jotting down the notable characteristics the hero showed, and trying to figure out what kind of spider they were. Currently, Isuku's bet was on wolf spider, given the hero's lack of web and enhanced speed, and the hero's tendency to chase down the villains instead of using traps. I don't like him, a soft voice above him said. Isuku paused, glanced up to find Shinamori leaning over him to watch the video. There was something off about him, and agreed. However, before Isuku could question any of the speculations, the door slid open and everyone rushed to get to their seat. Like usual, Isuku got busy with putting away his hero analysis notebook and talking about his course book, taking out his course book, so he didn't notice. Not until he felt Katsuki repeatedly nudge his chair in his Oi, nerd, what happened to him? Huh? Isuku looked up and froze. Instantly, his heartbeat rocketed, breath hitching in his throat as his dad walked up to the podium with fresh bandages on his face. Like yesterday, he had once again ditched his usual uniform and was wearing black cargo pants with a black sweatshirt that had a bold white line running laterally, and each time Shota moved his hand a bit, the sleeve of the sweatshirt would rise up and Isuku could spot a sickening purple bruise on his right wrist. Isuku also noticed that his dad looked a little disheveled. His hair was more tousled than usual, his cheeks flushed faint red, and his breathing was a bit off, like he was running. More importantly, his footsteps. Shota had gotten so used to being silent that he admitted to having to actively remind himself to make noise in order to not freak people out, were uneven. Shota had left home far earlier than usual, saying he had been to an important meeting with someone, and then the next time Isuku sees him, he's injured. Isuku was trying not to assume the worst, but he couldn't help his anxiety and worry from filling his system. He had no idea what had happened, or what the extent of his dad's injuries were. What if he had been attacked? He knew Eraserhead was fully capable of protecting himself and others. Isuku didn't doubt his ability one bit, but he still couldn't help but be scared. He had almost lost him, and what if Isuku Midoriya? Isuku flinched as his name was called, and blinked a few times before looking around to find everyone's eyes on him. Are you okay? His dad asked. Yes, sir, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to space out. If you aren't feeling well, I can write you a note to go CRG. Isuku glanced at the notification telling him that fear resistance was a bit unstable before looking back at his dad. Oh, okay. Okay, but if you start to feel worse, let me know. Yes, sir. Till empathy is activated. The familiar feeling of a safe blanket enveloped him, and he felt a little bit of the tension leave his body. Kid, are you okay? Oh, Izuku watched Shota graze his fingers over the bandages covering his cheekbone. Yes, I'm fine. This is just from training? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to freak out. It's just that you don't have to explain yourself, Suku. It's okay. I'm still sorry. He heard his dad sigh softly, mentally. Very well. I accept your apology and you're forgiven. The rest of the day passed fairly normally. Well, as normal as it can be when the school was full of teenagers excited for the upcoming sports festival. During break, Uraka had once again somehow managed to drag Katsuki with them, and the entirety of Class 1A was sitting together. Kaminari had the privilege of getting to drag Shinso, who had tried to run away when he realized that they were once again going to sit in a group. How did you manage to get him? Zero asked curiously as Kaminari dragged a grouchy-looking Shinso behind him. Kaminari winked, a wide and proud grin on his face as he sat down, making Shinso sit next to him. A magician never reveals their secret. It was probably one of his stupid references. Katsuki scoffed, putting his plate on the table. Kaminari's smile faltered. How did you know? Katsuki groaned, clenching his jaw and gritted out a grumbling, "Shut up." "Aw, Gachan," Ishiku said teasingly, stealing a piece of chicken cutlet from Katsuki's plate. "Hey," the clown shouted. Ishiku shoved the piece in his mouth and smiled innocently. "Thank you for sharing, Gachan." His best friend looked like he was deciding whether to stop caring altogether or to smash his face against the table. "What do you think this year's sports festival will be like, Kero?" Suyu asked as he took a bite of her food. "They change it every year, don't they?" Yaoyorozu said after she finished swallowing her food. "So I don't think there is any way to predict it." "Nope, there is." Isuku, as he ate his food. "It's true they change the activities every year, but there's a pattern to it." Isuku only knew about the pattern because he watched the sports festival each and every year, both for his own entertainment and also because his dad recommended it. It was also how Asuka knew what upcoming hero to keep an eye on. Each year, his dad would ask him to record the entire festival for later on to study, which, if Asuka were to give his opinion, was extremely informative because as much as Asuka tried to analyze what the matches happened, he couldn't. He would end up getting too engrossed in the matches to study them. Although only the first year's sports festival was aired. The rest Shota would bring himself from UA. Insight had helped in noticing the pattern. Isuku felt silly afterward. It's glaring obvious that there can't be an infinite number of possibilities. Even if there are several options, there would always be a limit of number. And once he had added the remaining filters, the final list of probabilities were barely over 30. But those 30 different challenges were mixed and matched in such a way that it seemed like the sports festival introduced new challenges every year. Although, as you could guess, the few small changes made here and there, they'd help covering up the pattern. And also, it was incredibly unlikely anyone would study them in the way he did. I think I'm the only one obsessive enough for it. Ichigo already had a vague idea of what to expect in the upcoming week. He would ask his dad to confirm, but he knew his dad wouldn't give away a single bit of information. He looked up at his classmates and wondered if he should share his ideas with them. But what if I'm wrong? What if my predictions are completely off mark? Plus, what if they think I'm weird for studying a goddamn pattern in sports festivals? Itsuki pouted. He wanted to share, but he also didn't want to provide wrong information. However, before he could ponder on his decision any longer, he felt Katsuki vigorously shake him. "What happened, Kachan?" Ichigo asked, jerking out of his thought. Katsuki rolled his eyes and clicked his tongue with light irritant as he pointed to somewhere behind him with his shoulder. Ichigo followed the direction of his fingers and spotted All Might peeking his head in from the cafeteria door. He lit up, waving his hand when Ichigo met his eyes and motioned him to come over. What does he want now? Katsuki grumbled. You said your training with him was over. Ichigo sighed. After the day of the Sledge Villain incident, Katsuki was no longer a die-hard fan of All Might, as he used to be when they were kids. He didn't hate him. After all the years of idol worshipping wasn't easy to erase. Well, over the years since then, his view about All Might had improved a little at the very least. He still wasn't a big fan of him anymore. He tolerated him at the very best, the same as his dad. They didn't hate All Might, but they didn't like him either. Kachan, don't be rude. Ichigo scolded lightly as he got up. I'm sorry, but, I have to go. Aw, Mina whined. Can't you stay for a little longer? Ichigo chuckled apologetically. I'm sorry, but it's something important. Oh man, she pouted, slumping over Kirishima. Don't mind her, Mito bro, Kirishima assured. It's fine. Yeah, Uraka chirped, nodding encouragingly. Ichigo smiled gratefully and nodded. Alright, thanks, guys. Bye! With that, he picked up his plate and left, tossing the leftovers in the trash before placing the plate in the tray meant for dirty dishes and heading over to All Might. Good afternoon, my boy. I hope I didn't interrupt anything too important, All Might said. Nope, it's fine, All Might. All Might, can I ask a question? Ichigo asked as they entered one of the empty lounges meant for teachers. Of course, Ichigo-kun. Is this about the sports festival? All Might looked a little surprised as he nodded. Yes, it is. How did you know? Just a guess. Ichigo shrugged shyly, even though it was anything but a guess. In fact, not being able to realize why All Might suddenly wanted to talk to him in secret would be more irrational. Ichigo sat down on one of the two dark olive green couches opposite to the one All Might took. He watched and waited as All Might poured green tea into two seafoam green Yunomi with cute cherry blossom patterns. Here you go, Ichigo-kun, All Might said, pushing a cup towards him. Ah, thank you, Ichigo mumbled, picking it up in his hand. I wanted to talk to you about the upcoming sports festival, All Might started. You're still unable to properly use One for All, right? Ichigo looked away, feeling embarrassed. It wasn't that he couldn't improve his ability with it, it's just he hadn't bothered working on it yet. Even though most of his attack base quirks were at a low level, there was enough information to gauge their overall strength, powers, and damage, and One for All wasn't the strongest skill he had. It wasn't even close to what the other skill was estimated to achieve. One for All's 8 form, as in the one that All Might use, super strength and speed in Ichigo's list was somewhere at 5th position, and it was because he was training to become an all-rounder hero. Super strength was useful, but that wasn't his style. Moreover, compared to fire breathing, One for All was far easier to improve. Hence, he had been so focused on improving his other skills, he hadn't been able to focus on One for All. So, what do we do? All Might continued, taking Asuku's reaction and silence as a no. My time as a symbol of peace is running out, and among those with villainous intent, there are some who have started to realize it, he explained. I granted you my power so that you can succeed me. Ichigo froze. What? Ichigo didn't mean to, but his eyes twitched anyway. That last line irked something inside of him. Succeed you? Grant? If Ichigo had been a little braver and confident in himself, he would have replied with, I'm not succeeding anyone, and you didn't grant me anything. I didn't even ask for One for All. But he wasn't, so he kept quiet. The sports festival is an event that the entire country will be watching, and that just means one thing for us. You, the next All Might, the fledgling symbol of peace. peace, you will need to tell the world that I am here. All Might was unaware of the way Asuka's expression slightly shifted, the way his eyes dimmed and lip twitched down. What if I don't want to? Asuka asked. He didn't want to become the next World Peace. He didn't want to become the next All Might. He didn't want to become the next anything. He wanted to be the first of his own kind. He wasn't doing this for popularity and fame. He was doing this to help people, even if it meant that he would never be the number one hero, would never be as recognizable as Katsuki. He had full faith that Katsuki would achieve a spot in the top 5. Pardon? All Might asked, looking confused and baffled. Itsuku slowly realized that all this time, All Might had been training him to become the next him. Sure, Itsuku remembered the day with crystal clearance when All Might had first approached him with the offer to mentor. He said he wanted to train him as his successor, but Isuku hadn't been expecting to be the symbol of pieces with successor. One for All is a legacy. So when he had said as my successor, Isuku had assumed as a successor for One for All. Not this. Isuku took a deep breath, clearing his mind so he could convey his thought properly. There had been a misunderstanding all this time, and he wanted to clear it. I don't want to be the next symbol of peace, All Might. All Might frowned, but you had agreed back then. No, Itsuka paused and sighed. I'm sorry, but there's been a misunderstanding. I agreed to become your successor as One for All's holder, not symbol of peace, not the next All Might. But I don't want to be the next you, All Might. I want to be a hero of my own kind. But why wouldn't you want to be the next symbol of peace? All Might asked with astonishment in his voice. I gave the power so you could be the next All Might, the next symbol of peace. Itsuku swallowed, quickly realizing that All Might wasn't listening. Then he felt a hand on his shoulder and glanced to his side to find Nana sitting next to him with a stern look on her face. To his other side, Saburo sat with arms crossed over his chest and frown on his face. Connect us to him, Isuku, Nana said. We'll talk to him, Saburo added. Isuku nodded before turning to All Might. All Might? The other vestiges want to talk to you. All Might looked a little stunned. How? Isuku activated Tower Empathy, verbally selecting All Might's name, and waited as the connection settled. Isuku had never made a connection with the man before, so he had no idea what to expect. Thus, it was safe to say the sense of being overwhelmed that came was a complete shock for him. It left him breathless, like he was somewhere up high, where the layer of air was so thin that he couldn't breathe properly. If Isugu hadn't been busy trying to control his breathing, he might have snickered at the expression of complete astonishment on All Might's face. It was almost comical. I would sucker punch you if I could. Banjo spoke up. Banjo, Saburo said in a warning tone, but his eyes never left All Might. Tosunori, Nana started. Is this what I taught you? Is this how I trained you? Nana, you're... Oh, don't get all emotional on me now, Totsunori. I died over 3 decades ago, and you've known I existed within One for All for the last 2 years. Eighth, N spoke. Itsuku isn't your puppet. He isn't something you can mold into the next you. You got a lot of nerve saying all the stuff you just did, Banzo scoffed, but One for All has been passed down for the next number 1 hero. All Might tried to argue. It never has, said Shimuri. It isn't, and it never will be. One for All isn't meant to create the next number 1 hero. The fact that you said it's for heroes like you is insulting, Saburo said. I'm not a hero. I never was. Perhaps a vigilante at the very best, and that's during good days. So don't lump me in the same category as you. One for All wasn't meant for heroes. It was only meant to fight against him, Yurichi said. I didn't pass it down for a hero. Nana inhaled deeply and sighed. Tosunori, Itsugu is his own person. He isn't you. He's never going to be you. And I don't think he wants to be you. But But nothing, Yurizu snapped, making Ichigo flinch. All this while he had been quietly listening to the vestiges speak with All Might, while trying to get used to the overwhelming and slightly uncomfortable presence of All Might in his mind. But the conversation was spiraling into an argument, and Ichigo didn't want that. He didn't want the previous users of the quirk to fight All Might for him. First, Sabo said with a slight glare, I understand you're angry, but if you can't control your emotions, leave. Ichigo doesn't need it on top of everything. Yorichi stilled, blue eyes glancing between Saburo and All Might, before they finally fell on Ichigu's tense body inside. I'm sorry, Ichigo. I shouldn't have snapped. It's okay, but please don't do it again. I still can't tolerate loud noises. Don't feel guilty about this, and said, planting the message in his head so All Might didn't hear. Eighth had it coming for him anyway. He's improved from what he was, but there's still a lot of room for him to learn. He needs to hear this. Okay, listen, Eighth, you might have some grand plans, but Ichigo isn't obligated to follow any of it if he doesn't want to. He's 15, Banzo said in a stern voice. But my quirk, it's not, Nana said sternly. It's no longer your quirk, Totsunori. It's been Asuku's ever since he got it, not yours. All Might pursed his lips shut. He paused inside, looking at Asuku. I'm not going to force you to become the next All Might or Symbol of Peace, but I will implore you to at least think of this once more. Isuku shook his head. I can't be. I don't want to be the next Symbol of Peace. I do want to help people, but I want to do it in my way, as me, not as a version of you. He paused and shook his head. I won't apologize for it because I haven't done anything wrong, but please consider my feelings as well. All Might sighed and nodded. Very well, I understand, but do you accept it? Ichigo asked. All Might hesitated for a second before answering. Perhaps not yet, but I will eventually. Ichigo smiled a little. Thank you, Yagi-san. Alright, that is the end of this chapter. I know I probably mispronounced at least one name in one word, so I'm sorry about that. I hope you have a nice day, night, whatever time it is where you are. Bye-bye.